right. Well, Young Turks. Special rushed edition. Actually, I'm late today. And for those of you who are watching the show live, my bad. You know what I've been doing? I got up at 5:30 this morning, not just to prepare this show, okay, just to fit in an extra show for you guys. Oh, but I've been writing a little bit of a summary of a book. Uh-oh. What's it about? I don't know. We're going to have to find out, isn't it? That's a state secret. But I tell you, it's a doozy. Uh-oh, I'm throwing it out there, man. I'm throwing it out there, except I'm not. All right, so this is our special Friday edition. This is the show before Jank rushes to the airport. Now, we didn't have to do this show, but we love you guys, so we thought we'd do it, right? And I'm obsessed. I like to give you as much show as possible. And I couldn't be happier with the decision. Now, we got interesting stories. We got important stories for you today. Everybody's going to have fun, right? But the first story just makes the whole thing worth it. We've got a hot tub confession. We have a hot tub confession. And is it by a Republican? Of course. We got the House Majority Leader in Utah, Mr. Kevin Garn. And he says, all right, look, you got me. I was in a hot tub with an underage woman, okay? And now that was some time ago, but the reason it's coming up now is because when he was running for Congress in 2002, he paid her hush money, okay? He paid her $150,000. $150,000, right? Not a lot of money. And he says, well, it's okay. We didn't do anything in the hot tub. But you don't need to hear it from me. Let's hear from Kevin Garn himself with one of the best confessions of all time.
I was 28 years old, and I foolishly went hot tubbing with a young woman nearly half my age. Although we did not have any sexual contact, it was clearly inappropriate, and it was my fault.
Come on, that's the line, man. That's the line of the week. I don't know if it's the line of the month. I foolishly went hot tubbing. Is there a smart way to go hot tubbing with an underage girl? I don't know. But Kevin Garn apparently went in the foolish direction. All right, now look, this is a complicated story. It's not cut and dry. First off, it was 25 years ago, okay? When I see that, I think there's got to be a statute of limitations on this, right? Now, the main question there is, what did they actually foolishly do in that hot tub? Now, he was 28 at the time. She was 15. She was working underneath him. All right. And, sorry. I denounce and reject myself. And so then they foolishly get in the hot tub. He says we didn't do anything in the hot tub. If he's telling the truth, and that's a big if, because he just paid $150,000 to keep that quiet. If he's telling the truth, then I said let him go, man. I mean, there's got to be a time limit on this stuff. We can't go back 25 years, 35, 50 years just because somebody went foolishly hot tubbing and go crazy over it, right? If he did more than just sit there naked with a 15-year-old and he sexually assaulted her, well, in the court of public opinion, there is no statute of limitations on that. Now, she says that she is coming forward now because it's going to help her deal with her pain about the incident. But then that's what she said to get the $150,000 in the first place. And apparently that wasn't enough to heal her pain. Now, again, it depends on what actually happened in that hot tub, and we don't know. You know, we have his version of it, and then, of course, she's going to have a different version, is my guess, right? But if you were just sitting in a hot tub naked with somebody, underage, terrible. He's conservative, terrible. He's, of course, the point man for corruption and cleaning up corruption in Utah for the Republicans, right? All that stuff. But paying $150,000, I just can't get over that, man. That's a lot of money to pay for something you did 25 years ago that you say is totally benign or close to benign, just a little foolish. So that's number one. Number two, look, this is you basically paid off someone who was blackmailing. It was extortion. But you took part in it by paying it. Well, if you're the point man on corruption for your party and you paid $150,000 in extortion money, well, that's a whole different issue in and of itself. I mean, that's at this point got to be the bigger issue. I mean, you foolishly gave away $150,000 for what happened in a hot tub quarter of a century ago. And the final part of the story that I love is, so he does his teary confession. Apparently, everybody's broken up over it, et cetera, et cetera. You know what they did? They gave him a standing ovation. Again, remember when David Vitter came back? He had hooked up with a hooker in Louisiana. That story broke. When he came back to the Senate, his Republican counterparts gave him a standing ovation. Oh, what a doer, yeah! Oh, go get him, David! Right? Now, with Kevin Garn, they're like, oh, way to foolishly hot tub. Nicely done. Rousing ovation. What are you getting all worked up about? I mean, look, it's one thing to say, hey, look, this happened a long time ago. Let's give the guy a break or whatever. And depending on the circumstances, I could go in that direction. But I wouldn't give him a standing ovation over it. Republicans, man, there is no end to their hypocrisy. These are the guys that'll get you in your private life. Oh, you had sex the wrong way. Oh, you did the swinger thing. Oh, no, you were gay, and then you were this. And you can't come to a prom because you're a lesbian. But we can foolishly hot tub all day long, and once we're found out, everyone's like, oh yeah, fantastic. Oh, great job. Oh, way to get in there, hot tub guard.
And I foolishly went hot tubbing with a young woman nearly half my age. And I
foolishly went hot tubbing with a woman half my age. All right. By the way, it's a story of it's a crazy story coming out of Utah, and it does involve State Senator Butters. Butters, what happened, man? Kevin Garn is stealing your spotlight. You were 3 for 3 there. You were racking them up before this Garn guy comes and steals it from you. It's not Butters, but it is Butters' buddy. So at least that's something. All right.
What is hot tubbing? I don't know. That's just that term. It's as a verb. I went hot tubbing.
That's like, you know what I think that is? That's I think old school, And I think that's like something conservatives say. Like, I think young people, we don't go hot tubbing. We go in a hot tub, okay? But they go hot tubbing. I mean, that's what leads me to believe that his story's a little fishy, okay? Because the very idea of turning that into a word means you're not just enjoying a relaxing time in a hot tub, you're hot tubbing. You see what I'm saying? And you got in that hot tub with that 15-year-old who was naked to go hot tubbing. We see you. We see you. Come on, man. How glad are you we did this show today? As soon as I saw that story today, I was like, booyah. All right. Now we go to New Jersey Superior Court for more clowns. JR passed the story along to me, and I love it. It's Superior Court Judge James Sitta. And he's in a little bit of trouble because Sitta been sitting up there passing judgment on folks. Now, he's a judge. That's part of his job. But what he didn't need to do is add the commentary. Okay, so he's got interesting thoughts on black folks. He's got interesting thoughts on Hispanic folks. First, let's talk about black people. And he berated a defendant at length, apparently, who apparently was African-American. He said, quote, you looked up domestic violence in the dictionary. Your picture should be next to it. The only difference between you and O.J. Simpson is he had more money and he got off for some reason in a land of fruits and nuts. Oh, come on. I don't know if that's more like anti-black. I don't know if that's more anti-gay, anti-Hollywood. I don't know what that is. In the land of fruits and nuts. This guy's going to be a conservative hero. Okay, then he goes after a guy of Mexican descent. He's a Mexican immigrant. Now, I can't tell. The story, unfortunately, doesn't say whether the Mexican guy is actually an illegal immigrant or a totally legal immigrant. But Sitta is under the impression that he's illegal. So he says, now, so let me understand this. Not only do we have to let him come to our country illegally and stay here, not only do we have to provide him with public assistance, not only do we have to provide him with free health care, not only do we have to provide him with a free attorney when he gets in trouble, now he wants a bilingual probation officer because otherwise it's inconvenient for him. Okay. Now what the guy said was, look, I go to my probation officer, but he doesn't speak Spanish. I don't speak English. I literally don't know how to communicate with him. I don't know when to meet up. I don't know when not to meet up. I don't know how to meet the requirements of probation. I cannot talk to him. And so Sitta's outraged by this. Oh, now we got to get this son of a bitch an interpreter, right? But he doesn't know what the guy's saying. That's why. All right, anyway, he continues. Well, I think it's a miracle you haven't been sent back to Mexico as a result of being placed on probation and being charged with these crimes in the first place. If it was up to me, I'd take you just as you're dressed and bound right now and have you escorted back to Mexico forthwith and forget the prison term. But it's not. In other words, it's not up to me. All right. Now, I'm amused by Sitta, but you know what? I don't think that these are, too egregious if you ask me. So, again, I don't know if the guy's an illegal immigrant or not. If he is, okay, the guy's worked up over an illegal immigrant. And he's got these opinions, and he let it vent a little bit. Am I on his side? No, I'm not on his side. But should he lose his job or something? I don't think so. I mean, but somebody got to talk to him and be like, hey, Judge, come on now. Come on now, bring this thing down, all right? 10-2, 10-2. And that's what they're doing. The Superior Court in New Jersey is saying, hey, you know what? The disciplinary committee wrote him, and he said, we find that Sitta's remarks were not only inappropriate, but highly objectionable, and at least outwardly indicative of bias and wholly unbefitting a court of law. Okay, I mean, that's pretty harsh right there, right? And Sitta's like, look, man, I got put on this court, and I see also here, let me give you his quote on that. He said, look, I was trying to make a point. He said, I'm on this court with the most horrific, sadistic, and emotionally charged criminal trials and sentencing. And I didn't want this. And I just can't dig it anymore. And he said, quote, it exacted a toll which on occasion has led me to say things better left unsaid. Yeah, that's probably true. So, and he compares one guy to OJ and he calls LA the lands of fruits and nuts. You know what? I'm tempted to let him go. And God knows the cases he's seen. Not to say he should do what he did, and they should give him a slap on the wrist and say, hey, cut it out, right? But having said that, don't fire the guy. Am I being too soft? I mean, firing's a big, big offense.
Yeah, it's hard from this point because you have to see him in action, see what he's about, if this is one or two instances that he doesn't always do. Because the problem is if he harbors these feelings and then his rulings or the way he goes about, judging people are affected by that.
No, I hear you.
So, I mean,
of course.
I think
and that's why it's so important. That's why we're even having a conversation. Because if you're a judge and your job is to judge people and you're judging them based on their skin color or on whether they're fruits and nuts or whether they're Mexican or illegal or legal, it doesn't matter. I don't know. So, of course, that's why that's a very important and serious conversation. But having said that, of course, I'd have to see more details, just like JR said. Get the context, how has he ruled, la, 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 la. I mean, if I was actually judging this case, which obviously I'm not, damn it, Jim, I'm not a judge, I'm a talk show host. I'd have to get a lot more details. Based on the information we have here, I say a stern talking to, maybe some sort of action, but probably let him go. All right. Am I not merciful? Am I not merciful? Okay. Now, speaking of people who are merciful and not merciful, we go to Karl Rove, who is definitely not merciful. He was getting interviewed by the BBC, and they asked him, well, you did this waterboarding business. What do you think about that? Do you regret that at all? Karl Rove, regret. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Here's what Karl Rove said instead. I'm proud that we used the techniques that broke the will of these terrorists and gave us valuable information that allowed us to foil plots such as flying aeroplanes into Heathrow and into London and bring down aircraft over the Pacific, flying an airplane into the tallest building in Los Angeles and other plots. Now, that Los Angeles plot, I mean, God, how many times are they going to go back to that lie? And the problem is the press doesn't bust them on it. And every time he pulls out that lie, they don't say, hey, look, that's been proven to be a lie. Okay? But he does it every time. So, we saved LA if it wasn't for us, They'd all be, incinerated. It's a good thing we waterboarded. I mean, this guy's got some balls on him. He says he's proud. And then when asked a little further on, hey, look, isn't this waterboarding illegal under international and U.S. law? Which, by the way, it definitely is. The United States has punished people for waterboarding before. On previous shows, we've gone over all the different cases where they said waterboarding is illegal and now you will be sentenced for this crime, right? Because it is torture. Now, when asked about that, he said, no, the administration lawyers, their actions were, quote, appropriate. They're in conformity with our international requirements and with U.S. law. Just make that up. Why not? And asked whether he thought waterboarding was torture, Rove said, no, it's not. And he continued, yes, I'm proud that we kept the world safer than it was by the use of these techniques. So several different times he talked about how he was proud. I mean, and they're, leave it to the Republicans. And that's the exact opposite of the Democrats. Republicans do something wrong, bust somebody's kneecap, or in this case, drown them, right? And they come out and go, yeah, I drowned them. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Oh, your laws say it's torture. Well, I say they don't. What are you going to do about it? And, of course, Obama did nothing about it. So Rove gets to go around the world bragging about how he waterboarded. And just like you saw in that first picture, what are you going to do about it? If the Democrats had done this, or anything similar, the Republicans would have ripped them to shreds. Shreds. This is wholly illegal. If the Democrats did something illegal, we have a world that is divided here, or this political world, into, criminals that brag about their criminality and pushovers that keep on taking it and you keep getting pushed over by thugs like Rove. What are you going to do? All right. We'll take a quick break. We'll come right back. All right. Back on the Young Turks. So there's this evangelical Christian hate group called Repent Amarillo. And there's no other way to describe it other than a hate group. They target gays, liberal Christians, Muslims, environmentalists, breast cancer events that do not highlight abortion, Halloween, spring break events, and pornography shops. Targeting breast cancer events, that's classy. Targeting Halloween, that's sane. Yeah, spring break, yeah, that's disastrous for America. That'll work in targeting those guys. So these guys are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but that's kind of almost the funny side of it because it's so ridiculous. But there's a very, very serious side to it. First, they've been known for a couple of things they've done before. They boycotted Houston for electing a gay mayor, and Houston hasn't been the same, man. Since Repent Amarillo hasn't been in there, Houston's a disaster. That boycott was probably the single worst boycott in recorded history. So that's not too serious. But then they were going to open up a play in a community theater about persecution of homosexuals during Nazi Germany. And these guys disrupted the play over and over again. They called the fire marshals, etc., and they couldn't put the play on that night. Okay, it's about homosexual persecution during Nazi Germany. All right. Then it gets really silly. They were bothering staffers at a nature preserve. What the hell? Why a nature preserve? What's wrong with a nature preserve? They say they're practicing witchcraft. That they're, worshiping nature and that God is against that. Okay, so now all of this is ridiculous. And then one last thing. Their name is the Army of God. That's the literal translation of Hezbollah. So that's why blogger Charles Johnson calls them the American Taliban. I mean, it's a perfect analogy. Now, you're going to see that analogy, unfortunately, in action. We got a video of them targeting a swingers club in their town. Now, what you're going to see is young men in fatigues. They go and they show up and they harass people night in and night out. Let's check out the details.
Mapped out places of spiritual concern for Christians around Amarillo, namely sexually oriented businesses, places associated with occult or witchcraft activities. And then we went out against a swingers club, which was operating. It was an on-premise sex club.
1, 2, 3. We're up. Raven Ministries is here to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ to the Route 66 Swingers Club. This place is a piece of demonic dung and stinking up our city, and we intend to get rid of it.
They told me point blank in face to face that it didn't matter what I did, where I went, that they would find me and they would follow me. The other night we were outside of town at a private residence. Sure enough, here they are. 2/3 or 3/4 of the people that come in this building are regulars that I've known for years, but I have no idea what their last name is because everything done here is on a first name basis. a new couple, first time them to show up, can be here 3 or 4 hours. Whenever they leave, Raven Ministries will call them by first, last name, know where they live, know where they work. They've called people's employer. I know of 2 that are associated with this particular club that has lost their jobs.
Get his license plate? I'll get it right now.
The Repent Amarillo Raven Ministries group is very, very scary. You have seen their websites. Everything is militant and stuff, and guns and tanks and helicopters and, surface to air missiles. No one knows for sure what they're going to do or what they will end up doing. It's like I stated before, there's times that I've gone out to my truck, I'm not sure if it's going to start, if it's going to blow up, if this is going to be my last day on this earth or not.
Just get back and leave people alone.
You talk about the Lord? Okay. See how easy that was?
Yeah, but you're still there.
No, we have a right to be.
Excuse me.
And we're still here, and we're going to be here. You got all that, right? Yeah.
The Bible says, won't enter into the kingdom of heaven.
That's right.
Now that's
Adulterers will not enter the kingdom of heaven.
It's important for Christians to stand for righteousness as well as preach the gospel, because the scriptures say in Ephesians 5:11, it says, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove
Going
them.
to hell. If we're bothered with you because we love you, Tim,
does it matter?
because we love you, Tim.
That is very, very scary, man. They're taking down license plates, following them home, figuring out who they are, where they live, where they work. And those guys show up in the middle of Texas on a night. And that is nothing but a whole heap of trouble. And I hope to God that the cops down there have their eyes on these guys, because they are militarized. They call themselves the Army of God, and they think it is their job to judge people. That is a very scary combination. I mean, all right, let's see what happens here. But if they commit any act of violence, that is the exact definition of terrorism. They are trying to terrorize these people, okay? Now, there are bounds of reason on what they can say, where they can go, where they can't go. There are legal, distinctions there that are important, okay? Because everybody's got a right to speech in this country, and they can say what they want to say. But the question is, when you get into people's private lives, where are you stepping beyond the law? But that's one part of it. Now, we haven't seen the violence yet. I want everybody to understand that, right? So, but as you look at that, I mean, how do you not get concerned about that? And if they do step in that direction, the government better come down on them like a ton of bricks, man. Army of God. Hell no. Hell no. No, that looks just like Muslim fundamentalism. And so I suppose the conservatives in this country should be very much against that group, right? Well, let's see how it turns out. All right. Now, last couple of stories for you guys. A couple of them are funny. We got Toyota dealers throughout the country are fighting back against the quote-unquote predatory tactics of GM dealers. They say, oh, they're trying to kick us when we're down. To which I say, of course! If I was a GM dealer, right now I'd be trying to cash in big time on the problems of Toyota. And so Toyota dealers are saying, look, we're good tax-paying Americans, and our taxes are going to the GM, which is now owned by the, at least partly owned by the government. So government is using our tax dollars to work against us. Well, it's a creative argument. I like it. Okay, but is it a persuasive argument? Not to me. I mean, we want to get out of the car business as soon as we possibly can. And whether it was the right to go into that business in the first place is a whole other question, right? And it certainly is not something the government should be doing in the long run. Look, we talk all the time on the show, what's in the private sphere, what's in the public sphere, right? And to me, it makes all the sense in the world to do fire department, police department, healthcare coverage, all the things that protect our lives in the public sphere. Cars should definitely be in the private sphere. The government should not be doing that in the long run. Now, whether they had to do this in the short run is a good and open question, right? But I don't think that what's happening to Toyota is some sort of government plot. Now that they own GM, what, Barney Frank is thinking, whoa, let me make more money. But he doesn't make the money, the taxpayer does, even if GM wins. But it doesn't matter because the government's not running GM. Okay, it's still in, industry executives' hands. So anyway, you guys know it's an absurd point, right? But, I wonder if Toyota can ironically use that against GM and Ford to get them to stop doing advertising. There would be a lot of irony in that. So it's something to keep an eye on. Okay, now, Tiger Woods has hired a former Bush aide, Ari Fleischer. He was a press secretary for Bush. And you know what? This move makes a lot of sense. If anyone knows how to cover up a guy who is lied in the past and done some wrong things, it's Ari Fleischer. Okay, he's done this before. If anyone knows how to manipulate the media so they don't criticize their boss who totally merits that criticism, it's Ari Fleischer. So Tiger Woods grabbing Bush's former press secretary might make a whole heap of sense. And Fleischer's smart. He set up a sports consulting company. Why? Because he said, well, in sports, a lot of people are getting undue criticism that they shouldn't be. And our job is to mitigate those damages and present a better face to the athletes and the sports executives who really need it. In other words, these sports guys are always getting themselves in trouble, and they got a lot of money. So let me go remove some of that money from them by getting them some quality PR. Well, like I said, it makes some sense. And Ari Fleischer's a smart guy for going into that market, and I guess a guy like Tiger Woods needs a guy like Ari Fleischer to improve his image. But when I see that, I think, that makes me question you more, not less. All right. Now, Biden is in Israel. We talked about this a little bit before. I mean, there were some updates on it. He says the Palestinians deserve a viable state. But that was totally to be expected when he went to go meet with the Palestinians. But the more interesting part of that story is the follow-up. So as we told you a couple of days ago, Biden goes to Israel, and then the whole point is to not do further settlements. And the Israeli Interior Minister slaps him in the face by announcing new settlements in East Jerusalem, which the Palestinians view to be occupied territory. And Biden is shaken by this. Biden is an enormous Israel supporter. Enormous. There's stories of Arab diplomats who have gone into Biden's office, said benign things that have almost nothing to do with Israel, and Biden goes on this rant about how awesome Israel is. Okay, but that has an interesting implication. So when Biden got slapped in the face, people were like, oh, that's the wrong guy to slap. The papers in Israel, in fact, the papers in Israel, Haaretz called it the slap heard around the world. So it's not just us, okay? They saw it the same way that we did, right? And the Israeli public didn't like it either. They thought it was too much to embarrass a man like that. And so now the Israelis are in full backpedal. Now, it's not full backpedal because they didn't fire the interior minister, and they're not stopping the settlements. So they intended to do this all along. But diplomatically, they're like, oh, we're so sorry. It was such a bad coincidence of the timing. My ass. Nobody believes that, right? What, that's the one time he decided to announce the settlements when he's here? No, that was purposeful. Everybody knows it, right? So they say, all right, but you know what? We're going to do a new commission, and we're going to figure out how to release the timing of these announcements. Okay, so they're trying to cover their tracks, though, and that's good. And what I found to be much more positive is the Israeli public reaction was overwhelmingly against this move, saying that you shouldn't embarrass the United States representative like that, especially the vice president, especially Joe Biden. So there's a slight, price to be paid in Israel if you do that to America. So that's definitely a positive development, because then that gives America more credibility to be able to say to Israeli right-wing politicians, hey, don't do that because I have your people behind me and you don't, right? That gives you leverage that you could use hopefully in the peace process. Now let's see what they do with it, but there was a silver lining to that story is my point, okay? So, and I'm very encouraged by the Israeli reaction to it, or the public's reaction to it, not the government's reaction to it. All right, and John Edwards, National Enquirer, is reporting that he might get indicted. The guy that covered for him, Andrew Young, has been arrested because apparently he's in contempt of court, and he won't. Well, I don't know if he's actually been put in custody yet, but I know that there was a contempt of court ruling against him, saying that he's covering up more of Edwards' sex tapes. Not that he's trying to not give out information about them, but not actually give over the tapes, because apparently they handed over a copy of the tape. So for some reason, the court is convinced that he still has more sex tapes. And in case you weren't grossed out enough this morning by this story, apparently the sex tape is of John Edwards orally pleasing Riel Hunter while she's pregnant. Okay. Oh, by the way, why is John Edwards going to get indicted? Because they paid off Riel Hunter. They paid her a tremendous amount of money using campaign money. John Edwards is in a lot of trouble, and he ought to be. So we'll see how that stuff plays out. I shouldn't have even told you about what was on the sex tape. That's some crazy stuff. All right, anyway. And then finally, let me give you 2 more stories here. Chief Justice Roberts says that he was very ticked at Obama criticizing the Supreme Court while they were there in the State of the Union. Tough break for you, big guy. Buck up. You'll be all right. The Republicans yell at the court all the time. Activists, judges, goddamn son of a bitch, liberals. They do these giant get-togethers. You remember the Sunday gatherings that Bill Frist used to lead about how the justices were too liberal and they were... Obama says, hey, you know what, I disagree with that decision, and that's too much? Bill Frist, the Senate majority leader at the time for the Republicans, organized countrywide gatherings in churches of thousands upon thousands of people to rally against the liberal justices. And of course, when Robert says it, the whole media, everybody, earlier in the week, everybody was like, oh, Obama, was he too harsh on the Supreme Court? Is he interfering too much with the other branches of government? Gibbs fired back at Chief Justice Roberts saying the problem wasn't what Obama said, the problem was the decision. Hey, I like that. All right, that's a little tough. I like that. Okay, and finally, just my favorite topic. We touched on it earlier, but it was a great article from a Wall Street veteran who managed the bailout of long-term capital management in 1998. You guys remember that? It's called LCM, and they blew up just like happened in 2008. And they were going to drag down everything with it. They had to organize a bailout. It happens, every so often. And then every time people say, couldn't have seen it coming. And the guy who organized the bailout of LCM is waving like enormous red flags. He's like, it's much worse now. We didn't fix anything. Oh, 2008 was worse than the long-term capital management bailout? And what's coming next is going to be much worse than that because the system is totally out of control. I'm telling you all this because almost all the respected economists and the people that are in this field, the regulators, people, and the top guys who made money, Soros, Buffett, etc., the top investors in the country, they're all saying the same thing. Watch out. The system is totally broken, has not been fixed at all, and it's a guarantee that they're going to have another collapse. And as they all say this, I guarantee you the next time there's a collapse, people are going to say, no one could have seen it coming. Well, it's cyclical and business, and that's how things are, and it happens every so often, and there's nothing you can do about it. My ass. Everybody knows what you can do about it, and for the moment being, no one is doing it. All right, when we come back, Anna is a woman. Young Turks.
Let's go grab some double cheeseburgers at BK.
Nah, I'm gonna get one at McDonald's.
Why? There's a BK right there.
I have these tiny hands.
They're not that tiny.
They are that tiny. And that double cheeseburger, or BK, it's so big, it's gonna make them look even tinier.
What if I hold it for you?
I was like, why are we having a random burger commercial? See how big they are? They're huge.
Cenk has big hands, despite the way they looked yesterday.
Yeah, big, huge, colossal. Look at this. Okay, anyway. You know what else I have that's big?
Oh, no, Cenk!
What? I was going to say feet. Okay, anyway.
All right.
All right, let's go forward. Come on.
Okay, Toby Ellis from England discovered Jesus in his frying pan.
Well, of course he did. Of course he did. I haven't seen it yet, but there's no way it's not Jesus.
He was cooking breakfast. He went into another room and forgot that he was cooking breakfast. When he went back, he found Jesus. That does kind of look like Jesus. I got to keep it real.
What are you talking about? That looks like a serial killer. That looks like, you know what that looks like? That looks like an old fossil. It looks like Lucy, the missing link. Okay? I mean, either it's a guy wearing a hockey mask about to kill somebody, okay, or it's Lucy, the missing link. So maybe this proves that evolution right. Okay? Can you imagine God sends a sign in a frying pan that evolution is right? Mm-hmm. That would be ironic.
Well, Toby is calling it a miracle since the pan could have been taken over by flames and burned into little pieces. Instead, Jesus appeared to save him.
Can you imagine if that's how Jesus really operates? He's looking over the whole universe, right? Earth is a small part, but he's looking at, but he likes humans. They're his boys, right? So he's like, let's see. Oh, dude, that dude's got a fire going on. Hold up. God, I'll get back to you in a second. Hold up. Moses, quiet down. I'll get back to the poker game. All right, just give me a sec. Goes down to the frying pan. He's like, well, I put it out, but how's he going to know it's me? Why don't I leave my signature? Something that looks kind of like me or the missing link. Puts it in the ashes. He's like, all right, go. And he goes back to his poker game with Moses and Buddha. People are funny, man. Look, if he's trying to make money off of it, God bless, go forward. If he actually believes it, I feel bad for him. All right. What's next?
All right, James Sykes recently made headlines because a CHP officer had to help him stop his Toyota Prius. Mm-hmm. He says he was driving down the freeway and all of a sudden his Prius unexpectedly accelerated to 94 miles per hour.
Oh no, I covered this story.
Oh, you did?
Oh, schwang, wang, wang. What happened?
In the first hour?
No. I covered it early a couple of days ago when we thought it was,
Yeah, there are updates, okay? It turns out that he might have been lying because he's in severe debt and needs money.
Wang, wang, wang. Oh, no.
Yes.
Okay.
So just to be specific, he filed for bankruptcy back in 2008. He was $700,000 in debt. Okay? And he has been late on his Prius payments, and he owes about $20,000 for his leased Prius.
So they think that he was like, oh, what can I do? Oh, my God, it's going out of control. I think it's going to crash into something. It's totally Toyota's fault. Now, but do they have more evidence? Because, okay, just because the guy's in debt, I mean, who knows? Maybe Toyota's throwing him under the bus, or they're throwing him under a Prius.
They might be. That's the only evidence we have. So people are kind of looking at his story and thinking, okay, this is a little shaky. We don't know whether or not his claims are credible. But I also didn't know this. He owns an Adult Swingers website.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, he does.
Don't it?
That apparently isn't doing too well. It's not making enough money.
Well, maybe this will help his case. Now, one thing I get out of this is people who owe all this money, I'm always amused by that because I think, who's going to give me $700,000 to lose, right? Like, how do they, and I know how it gets, they build up a business, things go out of control. I know, but it always is like, they're not like $70 in debt. They're not like $7,000 in debt because they went on a shopping spree. They're not a $70,000 in debt because the house went underwater a little bit. Mm-hmm. $700,000 in debt. And what, nobody caught on until the end? I don't know.
I have one more tidbit of information in this story, okay? Mm-hmm. He also filed a number of shady insurance claims in the past. So, I don't know.
A lot of people are going to start to use these excuses. My wife got into a very small car accident a while back, a couple of months ago. It was a Toyota. Mm-hmm. And after all this stuff happened, she's like, sudden acceleration. Super obvious. I'm like, you were going like 2 miles an hour. It was like the smallest accident ever. For some reason, it bent her the front of the car too much, and so we had to get a new one, ironically, a Toyota. But she was going like 5 miles an hour. I'm like, what's the sudden acceleration? Went from 2 miles to 5 miles? Like, I don't think that's what they're talking about. So, yeah, a lot of people are going to use that as an excuse. The other thing I wanted to add is, sometimes when we do stories like this and get it wrong, right, people get at me, you got to do a better job, and, you guys are supposed to be journalists. And dude, I don't have time to fact check every single story in the country. Okay, what kind of staff do you think we have? Who's going to do it? You? Jesus going to, in his off time, be like, all right, let me fact check the Toyota Prius story, and and then the other one, and then the Chris Dodd story. No, we got to roughly report what, and that's why we say we're not reporters. We do a talk show. And we got to take what the reporters say and present it to you. And then if it turns out it's wrong, we'll come back and fix it.
Well, this story was all over Good Morning America, or Today. It was the Today Show, I think. Isn't that the one Lauer's on?
Lauer's on Today.
Yeah, so it was on that one, and they talked to the guy. I mean, we did the video from when we did a couple days ago.
Oh, right.
And the thing is, I think this can easily be resolved. There was the police officer that had to jump in front of him, and just a little snippet of his account was he saw him on the brakes and all this stuff. He said his brake lights were on and all that stuff, so I don't know.
That's interesting. But on the other hand, I also remember from that story that he didn't turn his ignition off for a long time. They were like, turn it off. But he says he couldn't turn it off because it's one of those push buttons.
Right.
And he also said that he didn't want to turn it off because he was going to lose his power steering.
Right.
That was another claim. That
right. That was a little fishy.
Well, when you turn your key off, your steering wheel locks.
I hear you. Well, look, he might be telling the truth. Just because he's in debt doesn't mean that his Prius didn't have.
Yeah, and also when your car is in drive, I don't know how the push button things work, but it probably doesn't go off.
Yeah, I don't know how it works either. I'm getting out of the story before we cause more trouble. Okay, but again, I'm amused by the guys who say, "Oh, you should have fact checked." How the fuck am I supposed to fact check that guy is $700,000 in debt? How the hell am I supposed to know that? Okay. Anyway, but when we have the story, we give it to you. All right, what's next?
Okay, CBS viewers have notified the FCC regarding Grammy-related indecency complaints.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
They were complaining about Lady Gaga's vag. They were also
well, you're not alone.
They were also complaining about Beyonce's simulated fellatio.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't know Beyonce was up to that. Interesting. Now I want to check out the Grammys for the first time.
So some of the complaints included a North Carolina woman who said, "My 3-year-old daughter was wondering why her butt was showing." And she was referring to Lady Gaga. Another person from Georgia noted, "I had to explain to a 10-year-old why turning on a TV is now a hazard."
Oh, come on. You didn't know that the Grammys have people like Lady Gaga on them, and that from time to time they like to show their buttocks in crazy outfits like this? You were surprised by that. Lady Gaga coming out in a questionable outfit took you by surprise. That's what happened. Oh, come on. Look, if anything, these criticisms make me want to watch the Grammys, which I had no interest in before. They have those billboards all over L.A., or they did. Watch the Grammys. Everybody's a fan. And every time I drove by the billboard, I thought, wrong again, Bob. No, I'm not a fan. Don't care. But these people want to make me stick up for the Grammys. Oh, my God, that's Lady Gaga's butt! Oh, I'm so sorry to all the children online. It turns out you can't just go online anymore. Because next thing you know, you run into Lady Gaga's butt. This is a crime. It's an outrage.
I'm trying to imagine. What do you tell your kids? Dad, why did I see Lady Gaga's butt? Because Lady Gaga has one, son. Just like you have one.
End of conversation. Over. Okay. What's so hard about that? Does Lady Gaga have private parts too?
No, you're the only one.
Yeah, I love it. No, you're the only one. That'll freak out a kid. He'd be like, really? Nobody else has this downstairs? Everybody just calm down.
All right. Well, speaking of Lady Gaga, her new music video, Telephone, has been released. Okay. The full version is released on her website, and it's about 9 minutes long. But we have a shorter version for you guys that gives you the gist of it. Okay.
Well, look, here's the thing. I don't love to play music videos on the show. We had this discussion before the show. But Anna assures me that this is the best video ever.
You know why? It will make you wonderfully uncomfortable throughout the entire thing.
All right, I'm in. I'm going to grab my glass.
And it has many influences. Watch the video and note all the influences it has.
Oh, the influences.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to this. Let's watch.
Called, I can't hear a thing. I have got no service in the club. You say. What did you say? Oh, you're breaking up on me. Sorry, I cannot hear you. I'm kind of busy.
Can I make comments?
Yeah, make comments.
This is an awesome song. I'm kinda busy. I love the deep message here. Stop calling me. I'm kinda busy. All right. And what's the influence here? She looks like Madonna?
Yeah, she looks like Madonna here. But
Okay.
keep watching.
All right.
It's your lucky day. Some idiot bailed you out.
Oh, Michael Jackson.
Yep,
I got
see?
it.
Got it.
Influences.
You'll be back, honey.
It's a nice hat. Don't it?
You've been a very bad girl.
Oh, that's
A
Beyonce.
very, very bad girl, Gaga. Honey, baby.
Sure you want to do this, honey bee?
What do you mean, am I sure?
You know what they say. Once you kill a cow, you gotta make a burger.
You know, Gaga, trust is like a mirror. You can fix it if it's broke.
But you can still see the crack in that motherfucker's reflection.
This is Radio KUK. This is Lady Gaga featuring Beyonce.
Pussy Mobile. From Kill Bill.
That's really funny. I was like, that looks like such like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah, it was. It was part of a Kill Bill.
Oh no, I didn't remember Kill Bill. I mean, I saw Kill Bill, so that's why I'm sure it's stuck out in my mind. But I didn't remember it as such. It also had Thelma and Louise kind of feel to it.
So random.
Sick and tired of my phone ringing. Sometimes I feel like I live in Grand Central Station. Tonight I'm not taking no calls cause I'll be dancing.
It's a really interesting video, but the song is so ridiculous that it kind of distracts. I'm kind of busy.
I knew you'd take all my honey, you selfish mother.
Beyonce's face looks beautiful in this video.
Yeah.
They're having fun. I mean, this is a whole production. I hear you on that. Stop calling, stop calling. I don't want to take your call anymore. Why is that about? What does that have to do with any of this story?
You're being too rational for this story.
Apparently so.
Homicide. Police are on the search for 2 women said to be fleeing the scene of the crime in a City wagon.
That almost had a Natural Born Killers feel to it.
We did it, honeybee. Now let's go far, far away from here.
You promise we'll never come back?
I promise.
All right.
So are they supposed to be lesbians there? Is that what's happening?
I don't know.
Because that's kind of hot.
Maybe they're just best friends and they're really close.
It's possible.
Yeah.
All right, look, I gave up trying to see since I'm fancy myself very logical. When I was a kid and they used to do music videos, a lot of times the videos would have to do with what was in the song, like Thriller is a classic example of it, right? And so I came to I expected right from the beginning that the videos would have something to do with the song. But at some point they just stopped doing that. They were like, okay, this song is about this, but I'm gonna make a video because I want to about something else entirely.
I mean, it's impossible to do a music video about what that song is about. Because what?
I mean, no, you can do a backstory. Why was she kind of busy? Okay, why did the guy keep blowing up her phone?
She's kind of busy because she's killing people at a diner. Come on.
I guess that's the backstory. Anyway, now once you suspend that idea, okay, it was a fascinating video, totally unrelated to the song, but they did something with it, yeah.
This is what I got from the video, okay? Maybe Lady Gaga isn't that great at writing music, but she's a hell of a performer. That was a really good performance. I mean, from dancing, acting, all of that stuff in that music video. I liked it. It was impressive.
She was all right. She was all right. Remember, this is a giant production. Now there's a lot of money behind it. Once you got that money, you get the world's best producers, great directors, you got Beyonce involved, you put it all together, you put me in that video, I'm going to look like a great actor and a great performer too.
How dare you disparage Lady Gaga?
Although if
I'm canceling my subscription.
Although if I'm walking down that aisle with the bikini, I probably don't look quite as good as Lady Gaga. I'll give her that. All right, come right back. Young Turks.